Meister Eckhart, a German theologian from about the 13th century, said, boy, I better get it exactly right. We are all called to be mothers of God, for God is always waiting to be born. We are all called to be mothers of God. You know, whenever I read these words of the Magnificat, Mary's song, I have that Holden Village song that sometimes our community sings at Lent, you know. My soul proclaims your greatness, O God. It's kind of like a lullaby, right? It's just this wonderful, it's beautiful. I love it. But I really don't know that that's the way Mary sang that song. You see, it's a song of revolt, of protest. It's a song where she's going to put those on the thrones, says God will put them down low. The rich are going to go away empty. It was a pretty tough song to be singing. And not only was it a pretty tough song to be singing, but she was singing it in the home of a temple priest. The thing is, it doesn't really fit our image that we have of Mary, that for some reason the church has lifted up about Mary. You know, she always wears blue, right? Always you see Mary wearing a blue veil. That she was kind of timid and shy. That she says, let it be unto me with this beautiful, she was graceful, right? You know, here's the thing. Today, let's stop and step back a minute. Step back from that image that the church has put out about Mary. And let's talk about what we know when we read this story. What we know about this gritty, bold young woman. We know that Mary, well, here's the thing. Sometimes when we see pictures, we see Mary kneeling before the angel. No way, the angel kneeled before Mary because God had found favor with her. And she accepted, not only accepted, but she boldly took on what was to happen. Now, when Mary found herself with child, the first thing she did was have to get out of the city, go up into the hills to Elizabeth and Zachariah's home, because the law said an unmarried woman that's found pregnant was to be stoned. So Mary took off. She went to safety at Elizabeth and Zachariah's home. But the first thing she does when she walks in the door is tell this song, this poem of protest, of how God's going to turn the world upside down, how God's going to change things through this child that's in her womb. Mary was pretty gritty. She was a scrapper, man. She wasn't afraid. She said stuff that other people were whispering, and she sang it. She sang it in the home of the temple priest with boldness. You know, that whole idea of perfect, I think in this season we're all caught up in this idea of perfect, not only about Mary, but about our own stories, our own family gatherings. Somebody earlier this week told me that they never sleep very well at Christmas. They never sleep at this time very well because their mind can't turn off. Did I get all the presents I'm supposed to have gotten? Has all the food going to be made? Will the ham be done? Who's picking this up? Who's getting these folks from the airport? All this stuff that fills your head. It's crazy, but we all want to create the perfect Christmas. For me, when I look back at my childhood, I always think that Christmas is perfect. Christmas was so perfect back then. I want to do it again. Last Thursday, we had the perfect Christmas program from our children's center. I want you to imagine 140 children standing up here. One child was over here was screaming for bloody murder because he saw his grandma and mom and dad sitting out in the congregation. Another child over here was singing a joyful song, totally off key. And it was perfect because we knew the intention and the love that was present. But it wasn't perfect in the way that everything was right. It was perfect because the story was being told and there were joyful hearts. Well, that one little screaming, I'm not sure if he was very joyful, but back in the 200s and 300s at the church, for some reason, Mary got lifted up in a way that set her apart, that made it so that we could probably never attain to be like Mary. But the truth is, in a world where probably half of the population in most of the world is kept down, isn't getting the same wage, some are still being sold into slavery, where there's horrible abuse of women, it's time to talk about the real story of Mary. That she wasn't some shy, quiet young girl. She was a woman that was determined to survive. Most women in that day were confined to the home and going to the well and coming back to the home to make the food and serve the family. Mary, we always hear about Mary traveling with Jesus, going all over the place. She didn't stay shut up. Not only did she follow Jesus to the temples and to the different villages, but she even went all the way to the cross. Mary was a bold woman. And if there's a reason that we should try to be like Mary, that's why. She was bold about the mission and ministry of Jesus Christ to change the world, to bring justice. In many of your homes in this season, there's great sadness. There will be some people that are gathering around, and there will be empty seats at the table. There are some families where you're gathering around where the relatives have to sit at the opposite ends of the table because they don't talk to each other, but they're putting on that nice Christmas smile. There are going to be some tables where people are sitting around and they've made the decision to not talk politics because it'll become a fight. Or football, right? There are some tables where there's somebody that no matter what, they can't forget the terror, the injustice, the fear that's going on right outside their door, and so happiness cannot happen. There are some tables where someone sitting at the table is very ill, and it may be your last time to sit with them. It won't be perfect. But as we gather together in families and communities and neighborhoods, we know that the perfect love of Jesus is with us, is in us, like Jesus was in Mary and Elizabeth. Martin Luther said, when you come forward to this table to receive the bread, you are to put your hands like this to create the cradle. Because we now hold Jesus. We now take Jesus into the world as Jesus lives in, among, and through us to make a difference in the world. That we might be able to sing Mary's song, to bring justice, to feed the hungry, to change the social order that is unjust, to bring grace and love and mercy, as Mary and Elizabeth did, to sing a song with boldness, and to say, O come, Emmanuel, Emmanuel, God with us. O come. Amen.